After the long wait for the release of his manifesto, the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, unveiled his manifesto on the 20th of October 2022. The document highlights an 8-point agenda such as national security, economy, agriculture, power, oil and gas, transportation, and education, which it tagged Renewed Hope 2023 Action Plan for a Better Nigeria. Since Tinubu's manifesto was released, the presidential candidate of the APC has visited different stakeholders in Nigeria to convince them on how he intends to improve the economy, how he intends to achieve also a double-digit growth. Joining us on this show right now, this morning, as we discuss the plans of the APC presidential candidate for Nigeria, is Adams Oshiomhole, former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress and former governor of Edo State. Welcome to the morning show, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole.
Thank you, Ruben.
What happened to the khaki? You trademark khaki.
Well,
you abandoned that. You are not wearing suits.
No, we have to appreciate that we're going to talk to double-breasted businessmen. I didn't need to scare them with a combat uniform. And so I was ordered that I have to look like the business people. And you notice that both the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate also decided to wear suits to look business-like. You know, even how you look and make a statement. So I have to comply. We are flexible. I'm not an analog. The uniform represents my idea that I have to look simple and accessible to the ordinary man on whose behalf I have struggled over the years before politics. And even as governor of Edo State, I stick to it. But yesterday, when some people think I don't know how to dress, but we forget that I work for the textile industry, textile and garment workers. So I should actually induce and encourage people to dress so that they can consume per capita, so that consumption and demand for textile can go up and more workers will be employed.
Okay, but let's deal with the main issue,
yeah, sure.
Which is Bola Ahmed Tinubu meeting with the organized private sector in Lagos yesterday. He had been invited by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to have a similar interaction. He didn't show up.
Yeah.
He didn't, bother. They extended another invitation, but yesterday he organized his own. So why is that? How is it from the point of view of strategy? And one major point that he made at that forum is that he's going to introduce a phased withdrawal of subsidy. You were labor leader of this country. You had your own views. The labor movement which you led had views about removal of subsidy. But there you were yesterday, joining the, what do they call them, the oligarchs, dressed like them, and sitting down and supporting, a policy movement being proposed that will be, in fact, against what you previously stood for. Can you address these two issues?
Well, thank you very much. First, I think the first invitation from the Chambers of Commerce, to the best of my knowledge, came before the manifesto was released. And it would be appropriate for the candidate to begin to address groups before Nigerians generally have idea about his manifesto or action plan to be more appropriate. So I think that was that. Now, this time, as far as I am aware, he was again invited, and we advise that, I'm also an association man, that sometimes those who are leaders of the association and former members of the association do not always include all the key business people. So we wanted to use, as they say, one stone to kill two birds. Honor the invitation of the Chambers of Commerce, and at the same time, use the opportunity to invite other businessmen who are not necessarily former members of business of Chambers of Commerce. And that is why you see yesterday a lot of people who, if we were restricted to the association, a lot of people who were there may not have been there. So it is not about declining to meet with them. It was about saying, wait a minute, it's better we meet with you along with other business community. And that's why we target a meeting with business community. So there is no problem with that as far as I know. And I don't think they are worried about that because they belong to the same community of businesses. So it's just about trying to reach more people. Yesterday, we were honored by with the presence of, I would say, the real business leader like Aliko Dangote, Jim Ovia, Albert Wigwe, and several other key players in the manufacturing and financial sector. And between these two, a lot can happen. So I think that is my understanding. There is no any other thing to it. As for the issue of a statement about subsidy, I don't even think I heard the word facing. The issue whether the subsidy should stay or not. My view is we should be now talking not about subsidy, we should be talking about the opportunity cost. When I was president of the NLC, we fought against withdrawal of subsidy, and for good reasons. And then the numbers were between $20 billion, $30 billion a year. And I do remember President Obasanjo reminding us what he can do with 20 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion. But now we are talking of 6 trillion. So for me, there are two issues that we now have to confront. Dealing with the opportunity cost of throwing 6 trillion, not to fuel, because fuel is not limited to PMS. As we speak, people are having to cope with 700-800 naira a liter of diesel, and mass transit, buses are using diesel, and they are having to pay 700. Poor people running small businesses who have to use generator, they are having to spend 800 naira a liter, and there is no issue. So I ask myself, who is consuming 6 trillion naira in PMS? How many poor people have vehicles that benefit from this? So as far as I'm concerned, we are now dealing with fraud. I'm convinced it's not about subsidy. So it's about eliminating fraud, and it's about dealing with serious issues of opportunity cost, particularly in the face of a situation in which you have a budget and one item, not even a whole item, a segment of an item, because diesel is not there, kerosene is not there. You are dealing with just one item. It's consuming 6 trillion. Ruben, I hope you play back just to make this point that, I am not detained by certain, I'm not an argument. During President Jonathan, when you had that mass, I had argued, then I was in opposition. I remember we had an outing with a segment of civil society, labor, and a segment of the business community at Mosun Center, I think. And I said, from what I now know from inside, we are simply dealing with stealing in the name of subsidy. And I can tell you there was a meeting we had with NNPC when Desiani was minister. And one of his assistants said to me, Adams, if we withdraw this subsidy, there will be riot. I said, but there's riot already. Because even the commander-in-chief, President Jonathan, his own people can't get the kerosene, they can't get the price, the PMS, they can't get the diesel at the so-called price. And because all the padding that they do is such that the real people don't get it. They can try to service a segment of Lagos because the power of the media power of people who live in Lagos. But for the rest of the country, to my pain, I found that government was doing nothing to ensure that the so-called approved price is paid. even more worrisome is that when you hear the numbers of what is paid to equalization fund that was meant to guarantee that the price you pay in Lagos is the price they pay in Port Harcourt, is the price they pay in Maiduguri, that money is paid out, and yet these people simply don't have those control prices. I mean, one of the things you have to learn in leadership is that if you lack the capacity to enforce your ideal objective, then deal with, acknowledge your limitations. If that is leading to bleeding the system, as to cause huge deficit in terms of the things you could do with those resources that would deliver directly to the poor who are to the vulnerable.
Okay. So let me go back to the point of not attending the LCCI. So you said the main business people were there. Are you saying that the LCCI is not, the main business people, they are not worth their salt? If other candidates could attend, and your candidate didn't attend and set up his own program, what the LCCI meant for was that the candidate should come and present the manifesto themselves unaided, but yesterday was other people presenting with your candidate. So are you saying that he shouldn't come amongst them and he shouldn't come speak to them? And secondly, I also like to take you up on the subsidy matter because it is very ugly.
One by one, so I don't forget.
Okay. You want to answer the LCCI first?
Yes, so that we can get...
So the talk is it that there's a clear disrespect for the LCCI?
No.
If other candidates on the ballot can be there, why is your candidate not there?
Okay. Now first, we are not about to copy what other candidates do. In fact, at the heart of competition is choice of style. Whose style do you prefer? So no
It's
apology.
an open invitation.
Excuse me.
Not copy.
Yeah. We can choose not to do things the way other candidates are going to do things. And in fact, we rather do things differently because we are not the same. Our views are not the same. Our style is not the same. And that is the basis for choice for Nigerians. Which style do you prefer? Now, let me just explain the issue of chambers of commerce. I think these are very enlightened people. I'm not sure they have the view that they are not recognized, and I didn't say anything to suggest that. It's just like your NUJ. I found in NUJ that you have a vibrant union of journalists. But when you want to meet with NUJ, you will find people like my friend Ruben Agbati. You will find Rufai there. You will find all the chief editors there. And even when you want to hold meeting with editors, you will find some of the sub-editors will not be there. So if you say, I want to talk to media practitioners, including NUJ, plus other senior players in the media industry, you want to be more inclusive. Although the NUJ speak in its representative capacity, it may at best capture the feelings of most media practitioners. But when you talk to everybody, not just those who are the former elected leadership of NUJ, you will be able to see you have interaction with the media, just like in the past. And I think up to now, sometimes president says, I want to meet with media executives. What about the association formed by the media people called Nigeria Union of Journalists or Guild of Editors? But when they are meeting with media chiefs, it goes beyond the formal leadership of Guild of Editors, even as we have huge respect for those associations. So I think that is it.
Okay, real quickly, you just said that this 6 trillion subsidy is a fraud. Is that not indicting your political party, the APC? Because your party said it's a fraud in 2015. They came into power, they said they were going to pull it out. Till date, it's not been pulled out. And now they're saying they're going to be riots on the streets. And you guys in Occupy Nigeria went against Goodluck Jonathan because of this same subsidy. So doesn't that indict your political party as overseeing what you call a fraud? That's number one. And secondly, what's the plan for building refineries and settling this problem with distribution as regards, petroleum products? Because there's no plan on the ground. I didn't see any how in your manifesto.
You need to read it more deeply.
Read all of it, 80 pages. I didn't see any how.
You can read it without, that's why you sort of ask for somebody to help you review a document. You can read it 10 times and miss some few lines. It's human. But first, let me say, Your first question is?
You said subsidy is a fraud. You said that in 2015. Doesn't this indict your party for prevailing over a fraud?
First, recognize that as much as I am part of APC, and I chaired APC for 2 years, and I'm even now a Deputy Director General of Asewaju Campaign, I have my views. I am on record. When I was president of the NLC, I am on record when Jonathan was president as arguing that nobody has given me satisfactory statistics to explain away the numbers that NNPC throws around. I've never hidden that. I'm not going to hide it because somebody will misinterpret it. The president does not run the NNPC. Even as we speak, NNPC is supposed to be, and it has become an autonomous private company. But it does not matter whether you interpret it any way you interpret it. This president admits and appreciates that part of the crisis of Nigeria is this abuse of public institutions. We are not hiding that. Nobody has suggested that we have been able to cure all those ailments. And the fact that you are worried about, will you be seen as indicting? No, we are not indicting. I'm not indicting the government, and we are not ashamed to admit that hard as we have tried, there are a couple of things that are not still going as planned by the government. Not only in Nigeria, it is so everywhere, because the intention of the leader, the political intention of the leadership, the challenge of translating that, down the chain by people who are in the system is awful huge, particularly when you have a mixture of both private and public players. Now, at best, you have control over your public appointees, but you don't have control over the activities of the private players. As we speak, you have private distributors who get product from NNPC at certain prices. And in clear breach of the understanding between them and NNPC, they go down to their stations and sell it at ridiculous prices. And government doesn't have the executive capacity to monitor all those distributors. Now, if you can't monitor something, why allow the process to continue? I'm a realist. And the act of leadership is to recognize your limitations. As I say, if the world was perfect, when the economist is analyzing its options, you see,
ceteris paribus.
Yeah, all of that is be equal. But to the extent that all of that is are never going to be equal outside the lab, you need to take measures that are enforceable. Measures that are not enforceable, however desirable. It's part of the hallmark of leadership is the courage to admit your limitations and recognize the weaknesses of institutions of state and not build a castle in the air because it will stand. Well, now, I still stand. We can ask the question, what drives cost of living in Nigeria? Because the real reason, it is not the word subsidy that people are in love with or they hate. It is the consequences. Now, when I look at the consequences, the key drivers of the current level of inflation, I believe that fuel price is not at the heart of the key pushers and drivers that pull up the kind of inflationary environment that we are in now. The other thing that people have not discussed, why I talk about opportunity cost, I have no apology in saying that the real devil in the chain is the exchange rate. And we have to take a holistic view about the situation in which we find ourselves. Now, if we take, I do remember Governor Soludo, at a point he made a statement that he was going to peg the naira officially, tie it to the dollar, 125 naira to the dollar. He had the courage to say that because the exchange rate then was between 116 and 120. And so he said he would peg it at 125. Even at that, we thought, why are you marking it up? But that is how confident he was. Today, that naira is going to 800 at parallel market. I hear more than 800 and over 480 or 420 or whatever is the official rate. Now, if you have held one variable like the exchange rate constant, stable, and you are paying 175 naira a liter, nobody will be talking about subsidy because you are effectively paying more than $1, $1.5 a liter. And if you are paying $1.5 a liter, who will be talking of subsidy? But when the official exchange rates are now changed to 400 or something over the period, that your 175 naira has dropped below to maybe to $70 or thereabout. So if the exchange rate remain, you maintain a steep downward trend, there is no end to this debate. There has to be a holistic review of the monetary and the fiscal policy. There has to be some coherence.
Okay.
Now, if you listen to what you said yesterday, he dealt with the fact of this multiple exchange rate. Because we are not sure what determined the overall, the actual price that you now pay for in the market. You go to buy something. Maybe it's these people who are not doing that now because you are very structured. The other guy on the street running mini business, once he hears that the parallel market has gone up, he changes his prices. And that is a place why these prices are running riot.
Okay, comrade, let's focus for the rest of this conversation on what transpired yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the focus of this conversation, not any extraneous issue. The main issue that I would like to bring up again is that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday was promising the business community a double-digit growth rate. He said the minimum will be about 6%. At a time when the World Bank, the IMF, and other analysts are saying, in fact, 2023 is going to be very problematic because the world cannot run away from recession. How is he going to do it? He talked about infrastructure. The same infrastructure that this administration, the Buhari administration, has not been able to complete. That the Buhari administration is leaving behind huge tons of debt. That's one. The second thing, Kashim Shettima, when he took the podium yesterday, said the APC, the Tinubu campaign, will consign Atiku Abubakar to Dubai as a political tourist. You can stay there permanently. It's part of the campaign strategy to banish a major contestant to Dubai, to expel him out of the country.
Is that a question?
Because he says so. Shettima says so.
Okay. I think you have to know that even in the real serious business of managing an enterprise and boardroom meetings and social gatherings, including political meetings, there are rooms for relaxed jokes. You might call them expressive jokes, but jokes nonetheless. I think it was clear to everybody who was watching the vice presidential nominee what he meant, which we actually play out, given Atiku's record of movement, is that once he suffers a defeat, he's on record, once he loses election, he moves to Dubai. And so he's saying, because we are confident that nothing has changed, Nigeria has rejected him 3-4 times, and even the best partnership he enjoyed in 2019 with Obi didn't deliver him. Now, his ticket is not as potent as it was in 2019, and therefore we are confident that God willing, I emphasize God willing, using the same Nigeria people who have rejected him in the past, will reject him again, and because once he's rejected, he has a history of relocating to Dubai. That is what the vice president means. And I think we actually relocate to Dubai. He has been doing it. He's comfortable there. I hope that the ban on Nigeria doesn't affect him. So hopefully he will go there. So I think that is what he meant. And it was a nice, jovial way of explaining an observed pattern of behavior of what some people consider a major a contender. Now, the other one with regards to double-digit growth. I think you only took one part of what you said. He said we will try and work hard using a combination of microeconomic tools and reconciling the monetary policies with fiscal policies. Dealing with some of the concerns of the business community, which has to do with the multiple exchange rate. And stop the bleeding. Stop the oil theft. Recover about 6 trillion from fuel subsidy. Recover about 3 or 4 trillion by ensuring some stability in the exchange rate. Block the leakages in revenue service control. Federal Inland Revenue Service, make it more efficient and generate more revenue. And deal with the issue of stealing of our crude, which obviously has not always been the case. I have fought it when I was in government. It can't be fought. Get the Navy to do their job. Because right now, people lobby to be posted to that part of the country. And with Buhari, Asiwaju has said, he will deal with those issues decisively. If I post you to a place to watch the place and people are cutting away millions of barrels of crude in big vessels, obviously the chief of naval staff will have a case to answer. We don't owe him a job, he owed the country a service. If he doesn't hire, we fire and you appoint another one. He didn't say so, but that is what I will do. To take all of those measures to make people appreciate that stealing cannot be taken as a given. And if you do all of that, you roll out the numbers, you get value for all that the crude that you generate, you will be able, with sensible policies and so on, he believed that we can begin to achieve. First, we'll have the resources, because that is the how question. You have the resources to begin to reinvest more in infrastructure, reinvest more in power, and reorganize the power sector. Disband this issue of national grid, which collapses every other minute. And review all of that in a manner that you achieve greater efficiency, stable supply of power, and with that, the businesses can grow. Now, he said the initial target will be 6%, and the long-term target will be to grow from that to double digit. He didn't just say you wake up to double digit.
Okay.
You set your target, and even if you're driving a car, before you accelerate up to 60 kilometers per hour, you probably start with maybe 60, 40, 80, 100, 120 before you get to your peak. It's doable. If anyone can do it anywhere in the world, there is nothing in our gene that says we can't grow like that.
Except that the global projection is even below 6%.
Now, you talk about global projection. Global projection, there are still islands of success. They talk in general time, the average, but they are not always right. I've seen them say, against all the expectations, certain countries have achieved a growth level that is higher than was expected. Some other time, they revise themselves and come out with a more pessimistic picture. So they are focused.
So let me put in some things.
But the takeaway is that we must work to attain a level of growth that is higher than the rate of growth of our population. Otherwise, poverty will be a given.
Okay, two things. I read through your manifesto over and over again, and there are no hows. And I'll give you the instances. And there's some things you said earlier on that we'll just fact check you on. You said that price of petrol doesn't affect inflation. You can go and check the data. That's not true. It does. In fact, there's a 5% knock-on effect on inflation when you take price of petrol into cognizance, because it affects cost of transportation. Secondly, you said there's so many things we can't control as regards, the economy and petroleum. But you forget in a hurry that the Minister of Petroleum is the president of the country. So why can't the president of the country, as the Minister of Petroleum, rein things in? Thirdly, you said you were going to collapse the exchange rate in that manifesto, but there's no how. How are you going to do it? And these are part of the things, amidst many other things that we put in the manifesto. It is short on hows.
But I thought that manifesto, if anything, was very, very rich in how for the first time. The last time I had the privilege of being with you here, I talked about my disappointment that people say, like when you ask one of the presidential candidates, he has a standard answer: do the right thing, do the right thing. Power, do the right thing. Infrastructure, do the right thing. Exchange rate, do the right thing. Poverty, do the right thing. But what is the right thing? Oh, it's in my heart. No, it doesn't work that way. That is what we always say. Yesterday, and I even repeated it here now, the candidate spoke to the how. And let me restate it here as I understood it. And then review your manifesto, the plan of action. By the way, we did label it manifesto. We call it plan of action. There's a broad, progressive manifesto, but we extract from that a plan of action that is consistent with the progressive ideals of the All Progressive Congress.
How will you define interest rate, exchange rate?
Well, fine. He said, and I believe, I agree, but we will have to encourage the central bank to review its monetary policies and ensure that there is coherence between the monetary policies of the monetary authorities and the fiscal policies of the fiscal authority. If there is no coherence, that's fine. Now, I've heard what you debate.
How will that happen?
About.
How?
It will happen because it's one government. The president.
You saw what happened recently with the finance minister and the central bank governor?
That's what I want to talk about. You know, when people emphasize the law, I'm quick to say power must go with wisdom. You have the right as editor-in-chief to write your editorial. But it is not for nothing that I know, having had some interaction with the media, including fighting as I did in Guardian newspapers, and stopped them from holding editorial board meetings. But as
you
clear,
picketed our offices.
I picketed 3 times. As much as the editor know what he wants, Arube was easily the most respected columnist. Yet, he will sit with other editors to agree on the editorial content and how the message that the paper will carry as on its editorial. You have an editorial conference. Not because the editor-in-chief doesn't know what he wants to do. Now, so when people emphasize, I am not persuaded that the fact that the CBN is, it has the power under the law to do what it did, that is enough not to consult with other arms of government, because it is one government. And it is not for nothing that the CBN governor is not elected. It's appointed by the president. And the policies it pursues, as much as you don't want interference, must be such that they do not displace the broad macroeconomic objective of the government of which the president is in charge. That is what I will think. You know, and I'm happy that either you or Channels had an interview with one of the former deputy governor of CBN, I think Dr. Mogalu, and I think he was the right person to speak to those things. He said he was a member of the board of, the governors and so on. And he said, no, we studied the same law. They had a cordial relationship between the then CBN governor and the then Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, Okoje-Iweala. And that they have that robust, informal conversation and comparing of note, because even the CBN monetary policies could be upset if the fiscal policies contradict the primary objective. For example, I've always asked, and this is not about anybody, I learned early in life and in my studies that the worst thing that can happen is for people to feel so intimidated as to think that experts can make mistakes. The business of running the economy goes beyond the experts because the victims are not necessarily experts. I had cause to ask Oludo once in Lagos. I said, what is the monetary policy objective? Is it exchange rate stability? Is it employment creation? Is it price stability? I mean, inflation. Now, how does that coincide with the fiscal policies that are rolled out in the Ministry of Finance? Now, there has to be a shared objective, even as you guide your independence jealously. Nigeria is an independent country, but we interact with our West African neighbors. We sign Africa Trade Agreement. We don't have to. But we recognize that unless we meet, coordinate, share views, how can we better our sub-region? We'll have problems. So I think I am not in a position to explain why it was so difficult for the tradition which Moghalu spoke to about some relationship between the finance minister and the CBN governor. I do not have the details as to why that kind of relationship does not exist now, because apparently it doesn't exist. Now, that cannot be taken as a given that it should never exist. So if, as what you say is, as president, he will not allow a gap. He has to ensure that there is cooperation and coordination by asserting leadership. He did it yesterday. And let me give you an example. When he talks about power, he spoke to various sources of power. And then we have one of the panelists, a young lady, who spoke extensively and very eloquently about green energy and all of that, which the world was preaching until the Russia-Ukraine war. And that's why you say, yeah, all that is fine. But given our current situation, first get the power, generate up to 22,000 megawatts, and then begin to talk thereafter about the nature of the power, whether it's green energy, whether it's environmentally friendly, and so on. But right now, we face serious crisis of power deficit. So in terms of priority, and we have seen that in Europe, when they were stable and convenient, they make so much noise about the danger of using gas, and they were moving towards solar, etc., cleaner energy, green energy, etc. But now they are reversing to coal. In France, they are reverting to gas. In much of Europe, they are now putting that lofty idea in waiting. Why try to deal with survival issues? So if they have the guts to return back to coal, why will they compel us to key to something that they can't live with now? We have to you have to have a pair of suit before you talk about dry cleaning it. Okay. Before you teach about your preferred colors, yes.
Comrade, I think we can still call you comrade.
I am.
Because you are in a different regalia.
No, but I need you to understand that learning. No, this is important. Yeah. Look at my successors and even my predecessors.
Okay.
When I was NSC president, they were comrades too, but they choose to dress the manner that they dress. They don't wear khaki.
Yeah.
So it is just my personal choice.
Yeah.
And if you see this guy who owns Virgin Atlantic,
yeah,
I have never seen him in suit. Yet he's a multi-billionaire. So my dress code is simply to communicate. First, to keep myself aware that my first job, I started wearing uniform. And even as a governor, I insisted on wearing the khaki. I mean, it is just first to tell people that the fact that you dress simple, you don't have to look bogus and,
anyway, comrade,
you just feel you make yourself comfortable because
I'm waiting for that day when I will see you in Babariga.
It doesn't fit me. No, it doesn't fit me because of my height. I mean,
why not?
I don't function in Babariga.
No, people of your height wear Babariga.
They do, but they don't function, in my view. You want to board an aircraft, you are parking. I want to save time. I did a little bit of work study. If you see how much minutes people spend, managing the excess parachute, I am not able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that even reflects the way I work.
I will never say never. You are in suit.
But once in a while, I put on Baba. I think Mr. Tinubu got me to wear Baba Riga once. And when I look myself, I look like a comedian. And I wish I can be one, but I don't have the skill.
Yeah, well, Ali Baba has made a solid career out of that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, one of the things that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu said yesterday was about his record in Lagos State. And he said, look, he was a performing governor in Lagos State and he would like to replicate what he has done in Lagos State in Nigeria. That campaign line has been repeated again and again by spokespersons of his campaign and also by him.
Even by myself.
You have also repeated it.
I've also said so. Not repeat, I've also said so.
But do you think that's a good campaign line? Because there are Nigerians, when they hear that, they say, with the way Asiwaju has turned himself into a dictator, an oligarch, a monarch since 1999 in Nigeria, he wants to come and take over Nigeria. Do you think that's a good strategy? Because that strategy robs other people of the wrong line. They say he wants to come and own half of Nigeria, which many think that is what he has done in Lagos.
Okay, many things. The problem in Nigeria is that we can speak very generously without backing the statement with verifiable figures. Who is saying so? I think the concern of most Lagosians is about try to remember how life was and what is now. It's not still perfect. But, Ruben, you know, I found myself in Lagos when I became president of the NLC, and our headquarters was around Teju Market. And I lived in Lagos when we were compelled. I couldn't drive my car because it's on Tuesdays, because it was odd number. I can only drive it on Monday or vice versa. Every day, if you have odd number, you're on the road. Even number, you'll be out of road, so that you can reduce traffic. It's as if the problem was the number of car owners. But with all due respect, the military, with all their might, they could not decree order on Lagos roads, such that Colonel Tafa, I will forget that name, is now a retired general in his 80s. Colonel Tafa, a whole colonel, was assigned with the responsibility of bringing some order to traffic in Lagos. And they were using horse whip. And you have to be strong to go to certain part of Lagos with the area boys. Whenever you like Tinubu, you don't like him. He laid foundation that has transformed all of that. I never see horse whip these days on Lagos Road, nor do the military have to be deployed to ensure that people are able to. And sometimes I now find 6 lanes, some 8 lanes within Lagos. Many people thought that was impossible. But more importantly, the challenge of Nigeria today, why Asiwaju's performance in Lagos is important, are 2 reasons. First, tell me your past. Even in academics, when you want to extrapolate the future, you take your figures, the past 5 years, and say on the basis of the trend, you can extrapolate what will happen in the next 5 years, all of that is be equal. If you choose to amplify the rumors, the gossip, the envy of those who failed where Asiwaju succeeded, it will be your choice. But there are also people who admire those things, and when they speak to it, you should also respect them. The challenge of Nigeria today is that because of resource gap, we are borrowing. Asiwaju, rather than borrowing, developed and he fought many vested interests to raise the Lagos IGR. What the federal government is celebrating today, the much talked about single treasury account or something, was started in Lagos as far back as 1999-2000. So people are looking at a man who has ideas. And even what happened yesterday in Lagos, which we tried to confuse, for me, was very symbolic and attractive. And it reinforces my confidence that to be a president is not to be a man who knows it all. is first to have the discipline to identify who knows how to deliver in those critical sectors. And you providing leadership to ensure that whatever they are doing, there is coherence in the way they do it, such that the shared goal is not displaced. I watched Asiwaju interjecting during the question and answer time. I think that was the most important session. You saw Asiwaju like acting a president, like a president in council, getting people across the geopolitical zones. And in particular, most of them were young people. And asking them, you speak to that. You speak to the issue of gas. You speak to the issue of commodity board. You speak to the issue of power supply, etc., etc. And on occasion, you say, yes, that is all right, but for now, we won't do that. This is where we will start. And try to actualize the action plan. So that is how his government functions. The real challenge of a leader is to appoint people. If you say people say he has become rich, he has become poor, I think we have to be fair to Nigerians. The envy is within a small clique of elite, particularly those who thought they were the same and they failed. And there were many who were elected governors. Now let me ask you, why does Obasanjo's views, President Obasanjo's views, still carry weight? You know how Obasanjo dealt with the issue of successor. In Lagos, it's on tape. And your chairman was there, I was there. And President Obasanjo said to former Senate President Saraki, Bola Saraki, and he said, because Saraki said, look, he was happy the way he was fired by Obasanjo. If he wasn't so fired, he would have become governor. And without being governor before becoming Senate President. And President Obasanjo joked, that was his birthday, by the way, 80th birthday. At the holiday, he said, Saraki, you know, you are still even now a bad man. But I just choose to allow you. You know, when I was president, nobody can become governor in PDP if he, Obasanjo, does not approve it. So he just allow you. Now, how will you then describe Obasanjo?
Okay.
He said so on his birthday.
Okay.
And he said, you are not the only one. I fired Colonel,
okay, sir.
The guy who became, no, this is important. I fired the guy in Oshu, a military, who was formerly a military governor.
That's
Olagusoye. He said, but then I said, okay, now having civilianized him, and I said, okay, I compensate him by pushing him and allowing him to be governor of Oshu State. Allowing him. Okay. So why are we talking? See, I will understand if you say Asiwaju is being demonized for picking idiots, as Trump will describe some people, or picking on entities as successors so that he can control them. Every governor that Asiwaju is on record as supporting, I will use the word supporting because they have to win their elections. And you know the battle between Obasanjo and
okay.
No, this is important. Is it Fashola that you will say was unpicked because he was likely to be a stooge? Is it Ambode? Is it the current governor, Simon Lu? Okay. They are all doing extremely well. Very brilliant guys. I think we must credit him with his capacity to identify smart, young people with progressive ideas who he is convinced will key to the long-term plan for Lagos and actualize it.
Okay, I'd like to put in a question if I get the chance.
Yes, sir.
I know we don't have time. You've not answered how you're going to unify the exchange rate. You just said fiscal side and exchange rate. That's number one. Number two, how are you going to provide power for Nigerians? What's the step-by-step approach of electrifying Nigeria, putting more power on the megawatt and things like that? How? I need the details, sir.
No way.
In less than a minute, because we don't even have time again.
Okay.
Time is over.
We have less than 1 minute.
Less than 1 minute, yeah.
So you can't take two questions.
He will deregulate. He spoke about abolishing of working to deal with this issue of national grid, that you don't need national grid. You can create centers of, power generation in every part of the country. So that's a major shift. 2, he questioned the manner in which discos were privatized. All of those will be reviewed. Now, those are engineering technical issues. And you want me to deal with it in 1 minute? No, I don't think we are being fair. Now, the responsibility of a president is to set direction. I want a unified exchange rate. You, go and get it done. No stories. I don't accept that you go to the bank, you as a banker, no. It has happened before. It's not rocket science. It has happened before. That's why I draw your attention to what happened during Soludo. And perhaps Sanusi has a point that the two markets matched. So let us not talk as if what you have now is the outcome of sets of policies. If you revise those policies, the consequences will also change. Now, if you want me to speak to the specific much more than this, I don't know how you want me to explain.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Erufai, and Agbati. Nice day. You forced me to wake up very early to have to dress in an unusual manner, and I'm going to get ready as soon as I get here.
But it's good.
But it's always interesting.
I'm looking for when you show up on this show in Babarica.
Okay, I'll try and make one for that purpose.